The final test that we are going to be studying here in stats is a chi-squared test. Ms. Haston made a great video over her data simulating what you'll do in the project, but she was using the Saplet.com. I wanted to give you another option to be able to do a chi-squared test on the TI-84. So a couple Statsmatic pages here. We're going to do a video on the first one, show you again how to do a video on the second one as well, a second video there. So what we're looking for here is we're looking to see if there's an association between two different categorical data here, gender, so male or female, and preference of either English class or math class. We have a random sample down below, and all the data split into a two-way frequency table here with English and math and female and male. We've seen that when we were talking about Venn diagrams a long time ago as well. And then we have our first question: what does it mean that two events are independent? So two events are independent if we know if an event occurs, so if someone is male or female, that doesn't occur whether they prefer English or math. So knowing if an event occurs, knowing if someone's gender does not change the probability of another event occurring. So we have here our observed data. So 43 females prefer English, 21 males prefer English, 22 females prefer math, 28 males prefer math, and then their total English, total math, total female, total male, and then all 114 people in our sample. What we would do here, like let's say to find this value here, how many males we expect to say they prefer math, we would take the row column, this 49, multiply it by the row total here, this 49, multiplied by the column total, the 50, and divide it by 114. The reasoning behind that is that this 49 out of 114, that ratio should match however many males out of the total males. So if that ratio is the same, then we expect to get some number there. I'm going to show you something cool that this is determined. It's found by running the test on the calculator. So we'll fill that back in a little bit. So we're going to look and see if it provides significant evidence at the significance level of an association between gender preference of English or math at a significance level of 0.05. So there's our significance level, that alpha is 0.05. For our test here, just like before, we want our hypotheses. Our null hypothesis is that there is no association between gender and favorite class. So the alternative hypothesis is pretty simple. It's the opposite of that. So there is an association between gender and favorite class. The name of the procedure we're going to run is a chi-squared test for independence. Sorry, my ink was running out. Two conditions we're going to check. We're going to make sure that it is random. And we do have a random sample of senior students right there. So we do see the words random sample. And then we also want to make sure we have large counts. And in this case, we want to see that all expected values are greater than or equal to 5. And so we're going to check that once we get all of our values here when we run the test. Spoiler alert, it's all good. All right, so on our calculator, we're going straight to our calculator. We want to pull up matrix A. So to do that, we're going to hit second, and then a few below, you should see the blue word matrix. We're going to hit second and then x to the negative first. That'll bring up our matrix menu. So that's second, x to the negative first, or x inverse. And that'll bring up our matrix menu. We want to scroll over to the right and edit matrix A. And what we want to do is we want to put in this data into our matrix. So that's 2 rows and 2 columns. And we have 43, and then I hit enter, and it jumps over to the 22, enter, jumps down to the 21, enter, and 28. We don't need any of the total rows or columns there. I just want the data, just the raw data there, okay? So we're going to go second, that was x to the negative 1. We're going to go over to edit, and we want a 2 by 2 for matrix A, and that's 43, 22, 21, 28. Degrees of freedom isn't something we need on this calculator, but it is rows minus 1 times columns minus 1. And then because there's 2 rows and 2 columns, 2 minus 1 times 2 minus 1, that's just 1 times 1. That's just 1. We want to actually run our test now. So we're going to go to stat, over to tests, so stat over to tests. And we are looking for the chi-squared. I recommend going up. And so we want C chi-squared test. So it says, all right, where's my observed data? We type that into matrix A. It's going to output the expected data into matrix B. And we're going to go to calculate. So we get a chi-squared value and a p-value. So the chi-squared value, that's our test statistic, 6.16. And the p-value is 0.013. What the calculator also did was it put all the data into matrix B. So I'm going to go to second matrix. So let me so you can see. So after running the test, chi-squared test, we're going to go back to second, x to the negative 1, and we're going to go down to number 2. And we want to see what B is. So we hit enter and enter. And it tells us that our expected data is that about 36.5 females would prefer English and 27.5 males would prefer English. 28.5 females would prefer math, and 21.5 males would prefer math. And then if we write down, if we add all these up, that should get us 64. Should should get us 50, 65, 49, 114. That's a nice little check to make sure that that is accurate. And then if we notice the one that I've highlighted there, the males who prefer math, that's our smallest number. And so our smallest of 21.5, that is greater than or equal to 5. So our large counts is good. Some of you doing your project here might have to go find more data because that might not be true. All right, we ran the test. Now we're going to actually interpret what we found out and what it means. And we're again using this p-value. We're going to compare that p-value to the alpha level of 0.05. And so we can say that because the p-value, which is 0.013, because that's less than 0.05, we do have convincing evidence against the null hypothesis. So because we have convincing evidence against, we'll reject the null and conclude there is an association between gender and favorite class. Go on to the next video if you need some more example of a chi-squared test.